This is the Humerian Health Podcast.
Spilling our guts for the well-being of yours.
Very exciting. Allergies, they're everywhere. I'm allergic to a lot of people. They're not talking about allergies to people.
Joke.
Oh, do you have a joke?
Well, not anymore, because I said I was allergic.
I thought that was pretty good delivery.
For you,
allergies
that actually
to people.
was pretty awesome.
I only have allergies to people named William. William, the allergic person. I'm kidding.
My gosh.
I like most allergic.
You know that means you're going to get
Bill
muted.
is a good thing.
You're going to get muted on the podcast. So for those of you who are listening.
He's talking, it'll be typed over. Talking but not really heard.
That's right. We've talked recently, well, actually not so recently, about our off-camera fact checker who still refuses to get on camera.
It's going to happen.
Now you've just thrown our sound production expert under the bus.
All of a sudden,
awesome.
you'll turn in this.
You threw him under the book.
Yeah, it's under the book. And the book is What You Must Know About Allergy Relief. And it sounds so general, but I'll tell you what they cover. I mean, this book, it covers almost everything. So we're going to be interviewing Dr. Earl Mindell. So
yes.
We're going to get to that right away because I think we have a lot to talk afterwards because I think I'm going to have other things, and not just people, I'll be allergic to by the end of the program.
I'm sure that you will. Probably me.
Well, let's get started.
All right. So we're joined with Dr. Earl Mindell. He is the co-author on What You Must Know About Allergy Relief. Thank you, Dr. Mindell, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Yeah, we're very excited to dig into the book and to learn more about kind of allergies and tolerances. You have so much great information in that book. But sort of before we get started, I thought maybe you could baseline us a little bit and just talk about what are some of the common misconceptions about allergies that you can clear up for our audience.
Well, you see, people confuse their symptoms with their allergies. Example, a runny nose, things like that. They think it's a respiratory system, but really, all allergies are due to an immune problem. So that's what I think is very important to understand, that it's an immune system problem, not just what the symptoms produce.
Okay.
And half the issue is what type of immune problem and when did it start and what do we do? But is that one of the biggest misconceptions, is just the idea of what's what? I mean, differentiating it?
Yes, I think it is. I think it really is.
Yeah, and I was reading up on your book, one of the questions that came to my mind was sort of what is the difference between an allergy and an intolerance?
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm allergic to that."
Yeah. Well, example, I think dairy products are the biggest thing. People say I'm allergic to dairy products. They're not allergic to them. Well, they could be, but a lot of people have problems with the lactose, which is the milk sugar. But by taking an enzyme called lactase, that pretty well overcomes that. Or, of course, you can switch over to some other type of milk. I mean, I drink almond milk instead of the dairy product because I have problems with the dairy products.
Mm-hmm. So in that case, that would really be considered an intolerance, not an allergy.
Yes.
Per se. Okay.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
So let's talk about what you mentioned earlier about allergies, comparison to a common cold, comparison to other things. Kind of break that down a little bit, because I think that's a major basis of understanding that could clarify when you're chasing an allergy or when you're chasing other issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had a whole page on that. Is it a cold, or is it flu, or is it allergy? Example, a duration of a cold could be anywhere from 3 to 14 days, while allergies can last weeks or can all have forever. I mean, if you have a peanut allergy, you're going to have problems for your whole lifetime. So basically, a cold with pain and aches can happen in colds. But with allergies, it doesn't happen. And itchy eyes and colds, it doesn't happen, while allergies, it does happen. So I have a whole page there about differentiates between a cold, a flu, and airborne allergies.
Okay. And so I know there's a variety, I guess, of different kinds of allergy testing, but then I also know a lot of people don't actually get tested. I mean, what's the biggest reason people are not getting tested, or they're not maybe getting tested when they should, right? I think all of us are prone to put things off. But
well, I think it's due to the expense, fear, blood tests, hassle, skin tests, all these things, even the elimination diet, people don't want to really do that. So they have in their mind, they think it's going to be a big hassle to have these tests. They probably have seen with these little patches where they have to do about 15 or 20 different things. So I think it's really more psychological than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, is it that and expense and a few things? Now, the RAS test is kind of a not so fun test. I mean,
test?
The RAS test, they kind of put
where they poke you
all the way up and down the back,
right.
and everybody thinks needle, and they get scared, even though it's really not that painful.
Mm-hmm.
No, but people are still frightened of needles and the unknown. I think that's the biggest thing.
100%. Do you think that family docs don't lead people into the allergy testing as fast as they should, or they constantly are trying to wait for the allergist or the ENT to do it, and thus creates a multiple referral basis? Because 9 times out of 10, it's when somebody gets so bad. And you and I both know we catch it early enough, you know how much easier it is to catch these things.
Well, I agree, but I think most of the so-called family practitioners are so busy, they don't have the time to do this type of thing. So they would rather just refer up.
Makes sense.
Well, and one of the things you mentioned was the elimination diet, which I have honestly subjected myself to that to a degree, just in terms of, trying to I didn't really think of it as allergic reaction as much as I thought of it as intolerance identification, right? So taking out dairy and things like that, which you've already alluded to. I guess I'm curious if you could talk just a little bit more about what an elimination diet or kind of how that works, and is that something that is?
It's really very simple. I mean, if you're having a problem with dairy, stop eating anything that has dairy in it for a week or so, and then bring it back in and see what happens. Now, this could be a little bit of a problem because if you have a major allergy with these things, bringing it back in can be somewhat of a problem. So I would work with a practitioner. But the elimination diet is, to me, one of the easiest ways to find out what's causing the problem.
And that could even be done at home. I mean, that can be done if you think it's dairy, take it out, and if it is there, then you can consider go from there.
Yeah. So, is there a set of, I guess, symptoms or things that you might say? Oh, well, if you're experiencing like a lot of gas, or so. I mean, are there things that you can definitely say? Here's a checklist of if these are kinds of symptoms, you might want to explore food or changes in your diet as a possible source for that? Like, what process would you go through or recommend people go through?
Yeah, listen, absolutely. I mean, if you're having problems with digestion and find out. Here's what I tell people: keep a diet diary. Otherwise, write down what you're eating, and all of a sudden you notice you're eating something on a regular basis. That's probably the thing that's causing the allergies. I mean, it's common sense. So if you eliminate that from your diet, you'll find that many of these symptoms go away.
Mm.
Okay, so let's take that a little bit step forward, because half of the problem with most people when you talk to them is they feel they don't know where to start, they feel overwhelmed, and just logic seems to be dismissed from them.
So they need to buy my book.
They do. That's right. Allergy Relief. That's exactly
our book, I should say. Yeah. That's what we did the book for, to bring people from zero to right up to date. And I think I'm very proud of the book. We did a great job. And if you know nothing about the condition, I think if you read through the thing, you will become an expert on what to do.
So, in the book, you talk about asthma. How does that relate, or not, I guess, to allergies?
Well, of course, allergies can exacerbate asthma. I mean, they can worsen it. The pollen and the animal dander. I mean, you can have a problem with your dog, and that can worsen your asthma. And of course, even allergies to drugs, such even over-the-counter drugs like aspirin or your prescription drugs. I mean, if you see those ads on television for the prescription drugs, they always say, if you do not take it if you're allergic to it. Well, how do you know you are allergic to it? So it's becoming more and more of a problem because all these artificial flavors and preservatives and dyes. I mean, it's so obvious that this can, I think, exacerbate or worsen your asthmatic condition.
Interesting. And so is it possible then, are there things that we might be doing from an eating perspective? You mentioned like dyes and things that could actually make you more asthmatic, or maybe give you asthma if you didn't have it before?
Well, I don't know if it's going to give you asthma, but all I can tell you is if you are asthmatic, you should read all the labels and make sure that you're eating foods that don't have all these additives, preservatives, food colors, flavor. I mean, it's unbelievable. If you go into a grocery store and pick up some of these processed foods you see advertised on television, they'll have about 30 or 40 different ingredients. And most of them you don't either know what they are, or you can't even pronounce them. So my feeling is try not to, if you have a problem like that, try not to eat any processed foods.
Dr. Mindell, I was just curious, do you think that, the federal government's done a aggressive basis of funding certain industries very heavily, such as dairy industry, wheat industry, corn industry. Do you think that them funding it to the extent where basically those foods are dropped into everything we touch, that it sets up a higher susceptibility to allergens to those foods just simply because you're eating so much of it? Or is that not relevant?
Well, it is very relevant. I call it the standard American diet, or SAD. It's more like pathetic. I mean, more than three-quarters of Americans, two-thirds anyway, are overweight, and because we're eating all these processed foods that are high in the fats and the carbohydrates and sugar, etc., but they really are not very nutritious. So, unfortunately, our government, all kinds of people that are in the dairy lobby, and the meat lobby, and there's even a salt lobby that says we should be eating more salt.
Really?
Interesting.
I didn't know that.
Huh. You don't hear about the salt lobby too much.
Yeah, well, why not? I mean, it's in everything. I mean, it's a preservative, and also, of course, it's a flavor enhancer. So,
makes sense.
Absolutely.
If you have a problem, I'm not saying you're going to be allergic to salt, but if you look at some of these processed foods, you're going to see all these so-called refined sugars and junk foods that are loaded with additives and preservatives and dyes, etc.
Yeah, monosodium glutamate and salt. I mean, that's kind of like if you don't have that,
MSG,
I don't know what
right.
Yeah, it's huge.
Sure.
Now, let me ask you this. Now a lot of salt is produced in a lab.
Right.
I mean, it just is. And then it was interesting. I was interviewing one of the German cardiologists, and he was laughing about how the United States says, your American Heart Association says one day they're saying salt's bad for you, and then about a year later they take salt back off the list, and then they put it back on. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, here sea salt is something that we highly recommend because it has trace minerals. 72 trace minerals. It's balanced, and the body accepts it very well, and it doesn't drive up blood pressure unless you use enormous amounts. However, in the United States, you are now processing this stuff, so it's basically a chemical, sodium chloride, and it actually hurts the arteries, and no nutrients. Right.
Well, that's the same thing happening with food, too.
Yes.
I mean, the foods are so processed that there's nothing really left in it. They have to add things to it. I have a really easy, I call it the rule of thumb. If they advertise it on commercial television, don't eat, drink, or take it. And you'll be a lot healthier and have a lot less allergies. And for sure, it's not going to exacerbate your asthma.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And allergies seem to, I don't know too many people that don't think they have some allergy to something. I mean, that's what's really common. And I think that's been around for years, whether it's a ragweed or, hey, every spring, every fall, those type of things. So allergies just do occur. It's not like you're going to have the allergy-free person very often, correct?
Right. But you see, most of the allergies are not outdoor. They're indoor, because think about it. Where do we spend most of our time? Indoors. And that's why we have, in the book, we talk about allergy-proof your home, your condominium, your apartment, your dog, your automobile. I mean, we have some people in this country who spend 4 hours a day in their automobile. And so most of the time, our lifetime is indoors, not outdoors. Now, of course, commonly the pollen, etc. But if you really look at all the artificial things in our environment, no wonder we're having such a problem with allergies.
Okay, I have to take a little commercial break and ask you, how do you allergy-proof your dog? I mean, that's the thing I've never heard, and it's totally. I mean, it's on topic, but it's a little off topic.
Yeah,
But,
well,
I mean,
it's
but really,
page
like,
133.
Oh, well,
It's in the chapter. What page 133?
Okay, but I want to know
But
right
there are a
now.
lot of things you can do. What are just the top two things they could do for their dog?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, about half, I think we say there's 72 million pet dogs and nearly 82 million cats.
Right.
So it's very common in the country to have a pet. What we can do is, first of all, there are dogs that are less allergenic than others. If you really have a problem, I would look into that. But the whole chapter, it says that what you can do is remove the animal for a few days to see if your symptoms subside. So it's like elimination for your pet.
Yeah.
And if you have any of these symptoms, coughing, itching, rash, sneezing, sore throat, my wife, for instance, is very susceptible to cats. We'll go into someone's home or apartment or condo. If they've got, and she asks now if they have a cat. Within, I'd say, 30 seconds, she's having problems with her throat closing, having watering eyes. So we don't have a pet, so we're much more sensitive to it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that would be the most logical thing. But of course, try to keep your pet as clean as possible. And of course, dogs and cats can also have allergies as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a valid point. I think a lot of time we concentrate on trees and grass and all those type things, and a lot of the RAS test is based on those things. But they don't test you for a lot of the things that are actually inside your house, such as the paints that you use, the furniture, the cleaning supplies, because some people have developed allergies to these really harsh chemicals. It makes sense. Or what those plug-ins or candles. I mean, scary.
Yeah, I tell you, if you want to have an interesting experience, I tell people who have allergies, underneath your kitchen sink, take a look and see all these cleaning material products you have, and people have maybe 20 or 30 bottles of every kind. I mean, the chemicals in there are frightening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, are we allergic to some of them? I would say absolutely, because there's tens of thousands of new chemicals that are being introduced in our environment on a yearly basis, and we don't know all the long-term ramifications. But it sure seems to be logically that the reason that allergies are growing is because of all these new chemical additives.
Yeah.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So let's ask a quick question, okay? And that is that if we have allergies, and let's say that we have been diagnosed with an allergy, are you and the doctor also a proponent of trying to clean up all the environmental issues first, or are you a proponent of shots?
Well, that's the logical thing is, for instance, if you have allergies, I would recommend, and we talk about it in the book, getting a air purifier in the bedroom, because you're going to be spending 6, 7, 8 hours in the bedroom, and make sure that it's the air is as clean as possible. Dust mites, there's ways of getting covers on your pillows and your sheets, etc., that are the mattresses to prevent dust mites. In fact, I tell people when you see the sun coming through the window and you look out and you see that the air looks a little whatever.
Yep.
That's allergies and dust mites and dead skin.
Yeah.
So
that's not very cool.
Well, if you've ever seen a dust mite under a microscope, it's it's the ugliest thing you've ever seen in the world. So we have a air purifier that in our office, in our home, that keeps the air as clean as possible. And you should also, people just leave it there forever. They don't change the filter. That's something you should do on a regular basis too.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that we did not do when we introduced you, which I'm actually curious about, is the fact that this book was written a partnership between a pharmacist and a medical doctor, and so that is super interesting to me. And I'm just curious, what is the importance, or kind of why did you approach it in that way to collaborate with an MD on the book?
Well, the medical doctor Pamela Smith is a pretty well an expert on asthma. So she contributed greatly from the medical standpoint.
Okay.
And what I did was I have the Hot 60 anti-allergy and anti-asthma supplements.
Okay.
There's actually 60 different supplements, and if you look through them, I would say 99% of people have never heard of most of them. And it's too bad, because these are natural substances. One of them, called MSM, methyl sulfonyl methane, it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory product. I take it daily to prevent inflammation, because inflammatory diseases are the things that are killing us. And it's a simple thing to do, and yet no one's ever heard of it. It's just common sense, I feel, to prevent problems instead of waiting until they happen.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, well, we can't do that. That makes sense.
Why
Doctor.
prevent?
I mean, whoever came up with such a common sense idea, we can't do that. I think what I enjoyed about the book is that you did a really good job of just differentiating make sure you have an allergy and you don't have a disease. That's the first thing. And then number two, what can you do at home? And then number three, how do you support yourself long term and set up your environment to be the healthiest it can be? Because to me, you read through this book, and this is a book that just basically takes a family and gives them a chance to modulate their immune system in a healthy manner, eat foods that are healthy for them, that probably are more nutritious, and keep them away from things that, even if they don't see harm, eventually long-term is going to create harm. So I think your book does a lot more than covers allergies, frankly. I think you guys did a really good job of rolling out not only allergies, but eating habits, ideals, and actually easy to read. And I'm sorry, I've interviewed a lot of authors. There are some books that are written so difficult, you have to have a PhD to read it. And you guys did a wonderful job.
We made it as easy as possible. I got one great story if we have a second.
Go for it.
I was doing a tour of Australia, and we went to a laboratory, and one of the laboratory rooms, they were producing horseradish tablets. I said, what? I said, yeah, horseradish is a wonderful, shall we say, decongestant. And
yes, it is.
Whoever thinks of anything like that. So if you, instead of taking all these decongestant drugs, etc., buy some horseradish and take a little sniff of that. And believe me, that clears up the sinuses real fast.
Absolutely. Well, I know one restaurant that if you
say
actually
that.
get...
We have, their shrimp cocktail.
Oh, my gosh.
It'll clear your sinuses so
You'll
fast.
breathe clear for about a week. That's for sure. Okay. Doctor, we hope to have you back soon to be able to answer a Q&A also associated with this. And we look forward to meeting Dr. Smith sometimes. I know that she has written a lot of other books also.
Yes.
And you said this is in 50 countries?
No, I have books.
Books in 50 countries.
My biggest book is called The Vitamin Bible. It's in 34 languages.
Yep.
But I've done tours of over 50 countries.
Okay.
Well,
And
you know
this-
what we need? We need a copy of your Vitamin Bible.
We do.
And we would
Actually,
like to bring you back to talk about that. You already have one. Well, apparently
All right,
my partner has
just
your
get
book, but
a
won't
hold
share.
of the publisher, and I'll send you a copy. The Vitamin Bible has been around for 37 years and
It's a great
sold
book.
over 11 million copies.
Wonderful.
And still, we have so many people that don't understand the benefits of, I feel, one other great story, during the Second World War, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, we were caught basically completely not ready to do what we're doing. So the government said to all the workers, they're going to give you a plot of land called a victory garden. You might have heard of that, where they could grow vegetables and fruit, etc., because they knew that if they ate fresh fruits and vegetables, that they would be healthier. Well, they also gave all the people, the workers, a vitamin formula. They call it Vitamins for Victory.
Oh, how smart is
Wow.
that?
That's great.
How come we don't know about that? 75 years later, when we eat the Twinkie-Ding-Dong-Pizza-Prozac Pepsi diet, I mean, it's pathetic to think that they knew back then all these things, and now we're completely ignorant about it.
First, I'd like to thank you for giving us the title of our next podcast, which is fantastic.
We're going to have to write that down. That's the new book.
That's fantastic, But speaking of books, so we can get your books on Amazon.com, I'm assuming. And
yes, Amazon.com, all my books. You can go to the publisher, which they have a website as well. It's
Square One.
Square One.
Yep.
And of course, there's a few bookstores left, Barnes & Noble. It's really pathetic. There's so few bookstores left. But unfortunately, Amazon.com is the number one source for books today.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, for those listeners, allergies, questionable as to whether you have allergies, we would highly recommend this book as a great starting point.
Yes.
Frankly, you might be able to help yourself just because the doctors did a really, really good job, and your friends.
Yeah.
Dr. Mindell, thank you so much for your time. We look to interview you, ask you questions in the future, and it was a great day, and I thank you.
My pleasure. Be well.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Excellent.
Very good. I wish I could remember the exact order of pizza, Pepsi,
No, it was Ding Dong. It started off with that, Prozac, soda,
no, that was at the end.
something.
Prozac was at the end.
That's
anyway,
the new book title of, the American diet
or lifestyle
for you. To create disease young and ruin your life.
Oh my gosh,
Did you think?
Were you a commercial voiceover artist person?
I should do that,
You
shouldn't I?
should totally do that.
Yeah, but I can't keep the tone.
Straight
I just
face?
Can't. Nah.
Yeah, no,
I
actually-
can keep
no,
straight
so this
face.
was
You know I can keep the
yeah,
face.
yeah. No, that was a really good interview.
Yeah, that will. And again, for the listeners, if you love that, you got further questions. Besides, hey, frankly, get the book. I mean, it is so well laid out. I mean, it only makes sense if all you're going to do is try to clean up, not your dog, clean up.
I know. It's like, ooh, allergy-proof
That
your
was
dog.
perfect.
I
We were
love
both,
that.
and for the listeners, right? We're both looking at each other like, who's going to ask that question? How do you clean up the dog?
I know. I have to know.
But anyhow, it does a wonderful job of laying out reasonable mannerisms to be able to help your home. And the truth is, hey, how many times we run the drugstore, run the doc, and we take this, and the truth is, common sense depicts that over 80% of the time you can correct most of these things on your own at home using common sense. You just need the information. So what a great book. And we are going to have him back, and we're getting his, I think, Vitamin Bible.
Yes, that's
and
what he
make sure
mentioned.
that we get that.
Yeah.
I think that'll be great. But wasn't it enjoyable?
It was a very, very good
a lot of
conversation.
energy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy. We look forward to it.
Until next time.
Next time, and may God bless. Amy Baker, Dr. Sean Benzinger.
Humarian Health Podcast.
Spilling our guts.
For the well-being of yours.
That's right.
Thanks for having the guts to listen to the Humarian Health Podcast. If you have things you'd like to gut check, send us an email at gutcheck@humarian.com.